Question is the motion be agreed to. The honourable member for Nelson.
Thank you, Mr President. And I rise to make some brief comments here and really to endorse the contributions of other members that have spoken at more length and very well on the importance of what we're contemplating here today and how pleased we all are to see progress made on it. I also absolutely acknowledge the importance of that Bolt report, the motion for respect. It was prompted around the time there were some similar reviews being undertaken in parliaments in different jurisdictions, and it was the Brittany Higgins incident in federal parliament that prompted me to write to then Premier Gutwin to suggest that we undertake a similar workplace culture review here in this parliament, and he very, very promptly responded to that and got the work underway for the Bolt review and then the subsequent report from that. And I think that has been a real fundamental seismic shift, actually, as a result of that in a positive direction. And of course, that report, valuable though it is just a report on a shelf unless it's actioned. And so the work of the committee that was formed and has progressed since the time of the report has been absolutely fundamental to making sure that what we see is tangible change and real progress. And sometimes that has seemed a bit slow, but here we are with something really important to be agreeing on today and to see come into effect once it's been dealt with here and in the other place. I'd also particularly like to thank the committee members who have been progressing this work and all those other MPs and individuals who've contributed into the work through feedback or through participation in some way. There has clearly been very, very able work done, but competent work done by exemplary work, actually, I should say. Competent's hardly fair. Exemplary work done by the project team. Mr Andrew Young and the rest of the team members who have done this and underpinning the work with the committee to bring this to us today. So thank you so much for that. I'm also aware, and others have mentioned it, and I want to just make note of it too and add my recognition to the work of the clerks across this period of time. There's already been significant structural and cultural changes afoot which were needed and have already begun making good change in this workplace for all who enter it and work within it. So these three pieces of work, just very briefly, I'm not going to go into detail on them other than just to raise a couple of things that perhaps have either not been touched on yet or things that I would like to particularly emphasise. They're certainly there to assist us in ensuring that this is a safe and respectful workplace, and a code of conduct is very fundamental to that effort. And it was important to update what we had in place, which wasn't sufficient, and what we're going to have now as a result of this is a much more fit-for-purpose document, which hopefully then becomes a living culture once it's in place. That will only happen if we do engage in that training work that we need to engage in, if we engage in attitudinal change and monitoring of ourselves, that we are actually living the intent of the Code of Conduct. I'm absolutely one for professional development and training of MPs, and it's a sticky subject. No one can tell us what to do, Mr President, it would appear, and I think and I've always argued this on some other matters to do with public accountability around MPs. I think there should be public reporting of training undertaken by MPs. I think there should be public reporting of whether MPs, for example, have a Working with Children card. We can't be forced to have one, but actually I just think it's utterly appropriate and fair that all citizens and all voters understand about all MPs, whether they A, have a Working with Vulnerable People card, and B, whether they've engaged or are engaging in ongoing professional development and training. So that should be something, I think, that's publicly reported on somewhere in the public domain, so it can become a piece of information that an informed electorate has about their members that are representing them, and then also about people who might be asking for their vote or support in future elections. I don't know whether that's the intention, that there'll be some form of reporting about training engaged in and who's up to date with their training or who's engaged in it or not, but there should be, in my view. I'm also interested in terms of the Code of Conduct. around its application, and I raised this in the briefing, and there may be an answer, or it may have been addressed in the member for Murchison's opening remarks and I missed it because I was focusing on reading material at the time, but whether the Code of Conduct applies during election periods. Now, of course, here in this place, Mr President, we are MPs and acting and employed as MPs right up to our election day, so we don't have an election period as such where there's any question over whether we would be covered by a Code of Conduct. But of course, in the other place, there's a prorogation, and then there's a period of time during which ministers are still ministers, but members of Parliament who are running for re-election aren't technically regarded as MPs during that time. Certainly in the eyes of our Integrity Commission, that's the case, because we've already had that addressed in this state, that complaints made to the Integrity Commission about things that occur during the election period about an MP who's running for re-election can't be addressed by our Integrity Commission because technically that person's not an MP and not covered by the remit of the Integrity Commission. So I think it's probably important for us to understand if, and if so how, this Code of Conduct may apply to MPs who are running for re-election and during that election period. And when I say MPs, I mean MPs in the other place, because of course that does apply to us in this place.
Except for a few days, we don't know whether you've won the seat or not.
There's a tiny period of time.
Yeah, but not like the other.
Yes, true. Well, sometimes it's not a tiny period. 10 days could feel really long, can't it?
The election's already been had then,
Yes.
too.
Yes, people have made their choices.
Yeah, you can't make too much after that.
One of the things I wanted to speak about briefly in terms of the Complaints Commissioner role, I think is an excellent role to have in place. And of course, two things will be absolutely crucial for that being successful in undertaking the work that it's tasked with. One will be the appointment process, and then that delivers us and we arrive at having a person in place in that role and the Deputy Commissioner role that there can be no question that all MPs have full faith in, that's a person who has been selected in a way that's accountable and rigorous and able to be delivering full confidence that they can undertake that role and that they do undertake that role appropriately. That's something for us to be observing as we go forward into this new space, whether that's what we've framed up here and to successfully deliver. And then, of course, the second thing is around resourcing and just the ability to do that role. We know it's far too common a story, Mr President, in this jurisdiction for us to see statutory entities, for example, oversight entities, integrity entities be underfunded and not able to fully do their job. Now, that's what I'm assuming is not going to be the case here, that we will be, in fact, equipping this role and the people who are in it to do the job that they have to do and be available to do that fully. So we'll be waiting to see, I think, how that plays out over time. Cultural change, Mr President, is absolutely fundamental alongside these documents and the words on a page. It's fundamental to the success of actually delivering what we want to see delivered in terms of a safe and respectful workplace. So I do note the comments that were made about acknowledging the potential that there can be a weaponisation potentially of complaints processes, and that's something we'll need to be carefully observing and monitoring as well. And I think essentially it still remains an interesting system here in this very unique place where you've really got, ultimately at the end of the day, MPs policing MPs, and that's as it is. And really these arrangements here give us some much more accountable and clear mechanisms where things can be dealt with
independently,
more appropriately, more independently, and helps to work against the more problematic aspects of self-policing. So that's really probably the extent of my contribution, Mr President. I didn't mention the alcohol and drugs statement, but of course that's I think a really fairly straightforward, positive step for us to be taking. I think we've already seen culture change in this space, in this place. And I think this helps us to focus our minds on what we are all agreeing is appropriate and necessary to provide safety and respect in our workplace. So very pleased to be supporting this motion to bring these things forward and to see them hopefully, once they've been dealt with here and in the other place, hopefully come into effect, and then we observe and see where we get to from here. But I think all of us should feel more comfortable, and hopefully all staff in this place feel more comfortable once these things are in place and feel supported and safe.
Question is that the motion